Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Today You Learned. So, today we are continuing with the work from previously, although we are actually taking a completely different approach. So, we're still concentrating on Azure AD, or at least Azure AD joint machines. And in this case, we're actually gonna start all over again. So we will assume no prior knowledge of the Azure environment, and we will actually start by getting access to a joint device. So this will be the full step-by-step process that I will be demonstrating today in this video. So without further ado, let's dive in. So this is actually where we left off in the previous segment, and we were able to do some stuff, but like I said, we will be starting all over again from zero, and we will try to get access to a device. The way you get access to that device doesn't matter. In this case, if you look at the scenario, it should be possible like this, where we connect to a device. We have our password, that is actually that flag apparently. So let's dive in like this. We are now fully connected to a laptop device, and the pin code is also right here. And this device, and that's the starting point of this video actually, this is a device where we have full access, and it should be joined to Azure AD. And this will be the starting point. So we have no knowledge, and we want to retrieve the details of this machine and get access to Azure AD from our hacking machine, right? So without having access to any credentials or any prior knowledge, as said before. So first thing we might want to do is, let's see if we can open up a CMD window from our victim, right? There's an easy way to detect if a Windows machine is actually a member of Azure AD, local domain, or both. And this is the command that you can use for that. dsrexcmd, and if you go back to the top, you can actually verify that this device, so this would be the comment, right? Maybe if I zoom in a little bit, it's easier. So this is the comment that you can execute, and this device is joined to an Azure AD environment, and it is not joined to any other local domain or remote domain, one domain environment. That's pretty important for the next phase, of course. So what can we do now? Well, to keep it a bit simple, let's just perform one activity, and let's try to dump the memory of this machine. So let's open up Task Manager like this. And in Task Manager, if we go to the details, there's a very neat little process called LSASS. It's the local security environment. So we can create a dump of this executable, right? So it has been dumped to a local file, local disk, and here we have it. So it looks like I'm connected via VNC, so copy pasting files via VNC is not really feasible. So how will we fix that from my hacking machine, my Windows machine? Well, maybe just to show you a different way of doing that, let's go to my desktop for that. And a different way would be, for example, to use FTP, right? So I have Python installed on my environment, a newer, well, Python 3, not the newest 3, but Python. And I have performed a previous install of a library called pyftpdlib, which is a very small package. And I can use this actually to set up to create an FTP server for which Windows has built-in support, right? So in this case, what I have done now is actually created a Python listener on port 21 with write permissions, and it's currently in my desktop. So normally from my victim, if I open up a new window to be sure, if I type in FTP, and then I would probably need my IP address as a hacker. So my IP address would be 131 at the end. Let's see if this works. Like this. Yes, we are seeing the desktop. And FTP, of course, allows to upload and download all together, or both of them. And that's it. We're done. So now we can actually try to decrypt or decode this memory dump from our victim, right? So we can actually leave the victim alone. We don't need it anymore. We don't need this either. We can open this up some more. We don't even need this or this anymore. So now what we can do is actually try to extract some information for that. And the key that we need is called a primary request token. This primary request token will grant us access to Azure Active Directory without the need for any other credentials or settings. But it is in memory and it is encrypted in memory. So we need a tool. It's a tool that I have created. It's called Cloud PRT Decrypt. And this is a framework that I have created, or for which I will create additional videos later. But this tool will allow us to decrypt what is in memory. So what do we need? Well, we need something called the proof of possession key. So the POP key value. How can we find it? Well, we can use a Mimikatz dump from LSASS, or we can use the open source. Well, it's all open source, but we can use the Linux variant as well. So why not? Let's use the Kali built-in variant. And the variant from Kali is called PyPyCats, right? So let's first go into the desktop as well. So we can use our LSASS dump. PyPyCats allows us to do that. We will specify a mini dump file, this one for example. And what we are interested in is to filter only on the Cloud AP details, which should work, which apparently does not work. Let's see. What's the big deal here? Like this. So we have some information, but apparently there's a problem. Okay, let's see if I can fix that. So maybe it's an issue with PyPyCats. No, we still get errors. I have an idea why this happens. Okay. Oh, now it works. Okay, great. So just retry a couple of times, still open source or Linux. But this is what we want. This is also what you get, by the way, with Mimikatz, which would have been my backup solution for this, right? So Mimikatz will do the exact same thing. So here we have several options or several items that have been extracted from memory. Now the proof of possession key that we need for my decrypt script, which we will by the way use for most of all the other demonstrations in this video, this proof of possession key is right here. It's key type NGC, and this is the one that we want. Let's see if I can connect to it. Yes, so if I can select it fully. So this is the key. I will Control C this, and now we can actually feed it as a value for our PRT decrypt script. So let's do it. So now this is actually, like I said, actually the encrypted variant of the PRT, the primary request token. That's actually what we want from this. We want a primary request token, and as you can see right here, this is good, but we need to provide decryption details, which you can see right here, right? There are two ways we can go and find these details right here from our victim. So go back to our victim and get them. Or we can just use this master key. More details and so on will be provided in other videos when we'll be talking about something called DP API, Data Protection API from Windows. But it doesn't matter. We can actually use and find this key by using this GUID, right? So this is actually part of the memory as well. So we can actually just extract this master key from memory. And to do that, we actually have to scroll back because I actually already did it without filtering. So we need the master key for GUID 47CF and so on. So 47CF and so on, this would be that master key. So let me try to select it, and let's use that to decrypt this proof of possession key, right? So MKX like this. And now the decryption has worked, and we have a clear key right here. Now to use this to generate a new cookie value, a new authentication value to actually get access to AzureAD, we need another tool, a tool that is Windows only, another tool that I have created based on some information and some other scripts, and it's called AzureAD Generate Context. This as well is on my GitHub. It's one of my gists on GitHub. So we can actually just download it by using a copy-paste, by using this gist. So if you visit my gist GitHub, you will find this AzureAD Generate Context. So now I'll just download it to my hacking machine. So if I just rerun my Cloud PRT, as you can see, not found in current folder, it will actually contact or address this executable to run it automatically, right? It has just run, it found and run this executable with this clear key as a parameter. And then it has generated for us something called context, which is actually a random value, and then from that context a derived key. So this derived key is actually this clear key based with this context, and we have a derived key. Why do we need that? Well, there's actually a very neat and cool command line environment called Road Tools from Dirk-Jan Mollema, and he has created Road Tools, and one of the tools in Road Tools is called Road Recon. And Road Recon allows us to perform remote Active Directory, so actually AzureAD, reconnaissance, and can do this fully command line. So we can perform or run an authenticate process with a PRT that is actually visible right here. So the primary request token, the initial primary request token at least, is right here. So we will have to copy paste this. Road Tools is a Python tool as well, so I can just try to install it like this. Road Tools, but it should already be installed, right? So what do we need? Road Recon, we authenticate, we need the PRT like this. Another thing that we need is the PRT context, so that would be this key. So let me already select it, PRT contexts. And the last thing we need is then the derived key, which would be this one. Oh, correct. Like this. So now he works his magic and he uses these three values to actually already authenticate to AzureAD. And the authentication details are written to this file right here. This file is stored in the current directory, so if I cut out the details of that file, we can see that it seems to be a JSON with some neat information on the connection details for this resource. We can actually do it in a different way or show it in a different way if we omit it and do a pretty print, as they say. We just see the exact same details, but it is a little bit better formatted this way. Okay, so actually Road Recon has other options. We now performed an authentication, but if we run a gather, it will actually create a full database of all the objects of AzureAD. So we can actually run that in something called Bloodhound and other stuff. We can even use a graphical interface to visit it, to have a look at that, but I will leave it up to this guy to fully demonstrate that to you. What I will do now is actually reuse these details to perform a normal quote-unquote normal connection to AzureAD. So let me open up a new Windows PowerShell, because connecting to AzureAD the way Microsoft intended it to is often done in PowerShell, of course. So we need to install a module called AzureAD, which I already have, so it doesn't matter that it fails right here. And once we do that, we can actually connect to AzureAD with several details. First, we need to provide the tenant ID. Tenant ID is actually right here, so it's part of the authentication process, which is not hard to find. Tenant ID. Another thing we have to specify is the account ID for which we want to authenticate, so that would be the user actually. This identifies the user, which is this object ID, account ID, like this. So we need that. And the last thing we need is then the access token, the AzureAD access token, which is the access token that we see right here. So we have to copy, paste that right here, enter, and now we are connected using the AzureAD module from Microsoft itself. So now we can run the commands that we love and love to hate. So for example, get AzureAD user is one of the command lists of this module list. So now we have full access to AzureAD. We can perform a search on, for example, the user flag. So now we have details on the user flag. We can have a list of all the applications, if there are any, a list of all the devices, for example. Oh, not delete. Devices would be something like this. So now we have a list of all the joint devices. So this is already pretty cool, I think. Now we can perform all our recon and all the other stuff that you want purely in command line, and actually I just showed it in Windows, but it would work in Linux as well, in Kali as well, of course. So the last thing I want to show is to actually get a graphical access to a browser access to AzureAD, to get access to, for example, the office.com of this victim that we have right here. So let's see if we can do some more damage right here by actually extracting or running some more information or more details of getting to generate cookies. So that's the next phase. Use this access to generate cookies that we can actually connect to or use in our favor to connect to the website, the web interface, office.com. For that, we can actually go back to our first script that or the first Python script that we ran before, which would be this one right here. So this was the history, because we also have seen, if I look at the help for this feature, that we can actually generate something called an EY token, which is a Java web token, and that token will then have to be put into or copy pasted into the victim for generating a cookie, a valid cookie, right? So let's do this. So the primary request token, that was actually in the decrypted data right here. So this one, we can actually, so this is no longer a valid one, but we will make it a valid primary request token by copy pasting it right here. So now he has generated a signature to be validated. So this is again a Java web token. It can be validated. And we have to validate that with road recon. So we can do something like this: road recon authenticate the PRT cookie with that signature. And that will generate, like it said here, a number used once. That's what nonce stands for. It will generate a nonce by connecting to AzureAD. So now the first phase of the authentication to generate a cookie has been created on the hacker environment. But this road token, or the number used once, will have to be copy pasted over to our victim to generate a full cookie. The way that can be done is actually by downloading something else right there. So let me find that little PRT stuff, like this one. Okay, so back at our victim, let's open any command prompt, not so important. So let's go to the desktop just to make it a little bit more visible. I can now, first I have to copy and then copy paste, so to show you what is happening right here. So this is actually a PowerShell script that is also on my GitHub, but I made it a little bit easier to download or to type on a victim where I want. Of course, this is a PowerShell command, and of course I have to type it correctly like this. So now this will be downloaded. So now this file is being downloaded, or is downloaded on my victim machine. So, and the last part I want is to actually generate that cookie on my victim. Let's do that like this: request prt.ps1. And if I forget to specify, we need to specify the nonce that we had right here. But as you can see, it has an error on running scripts, which means that we have to configure the execution policy, or we can just bypass it, like this. So now we have to specify the number used once. It was already selected. I have to reselect it like this. Paste, enter, and now we have our this is the golden ticket, the access to the office.com, or the login.microsoftonline.com page, right? So this is what we want. It's the only thing we need. So let's already copy this one over. Control C, and then back in our hacker environment, let's maybe temporarily put it right here. And the other thing that is very useful, of course, is the name of the cookie, which is this one. This is the name of the cookie. Those two things are important. So time to inject that into our browser right here. So office.com, like this one. As you can see, we're not signed in. So let's click on sign in, right? This is the very familiar web interface to log into microsoftonline.com. Let's press F12. F12 will bring us actually to the list of cookies. So if we click on storage cookies, we have a list of cookies. And then we need a cookie that is a session cookie with HTTP only set to true. So let's edit this last one, right? The name would be, if I copy paste, I can reaffirm that or replace that with this one. And then the value would of course be the one that we put right here. Right, this should be the value, like this. So now it's correct. And just to be sure, we delete all the other cookies, so it's only this one. Let's zoom out a little bit. If I now press F5 to refresh this page, it should automatically log me in and send me to the logged in page of the user that was logged into Windows. So we are now logged in as April Banks, which is a part of iccc.be. Full web login. We can change whatever we want. If I want to go to portal.azure.com to have some more information on the portal or the Azure, then we can do that as well. Have a list of the or a list of the users and configures. If this were, which is not the case in this case, but if this was an admin, we would of course would be able to do a lot more, right? So this is actually the full demonstration I had on AzureAD, with more to come in the future, I'm pretty sure, because I'm pretty sure this can be done a lot easier and in one go instead of going back to the victim. So more on that hopefully later. Okay, thank you and keep learning.